Most people drift through life like a ship without a rudder. They wake up, they go through the motions, they react to whatever comes at them, but they don't know what they're really after. And if you don't know what you're after, how can you possibly get it? You see, the human mind is a goal-seeking mechanism. It's like a heat-seeking missile. But here's the catch: it can only hit the target if the target is locked in. If it's vague, if it's out of focus, if it's somewhere over there, you're gonna miss every single time. That's why clarity is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Clarity is power. When you're clear, really clear, something shifts inside of you. You stop hesitating. You stop second-guessing. Your actions become purposeful, directed, intentional. You start to move in the direction of your vision instead of spinning your wheels. Clarity eliminates confusion. It destroys procrastination. It cuts through overwhelm. Why? Because now you know what matters. You know what you're saying yes to. And more importantly, you know what you're saying no to. You stop chasing 10 different rabbits and you focus on the one thing that actually matters. Now let me tell you what most people do wrong. They say things like, I want to be successful. Okay, great. But what does success mean? Is it financial freedom? Is it deep relationships? Is it mastering your craft? Is it waking up every day with energy and passion? If you can't define it, how will you know when you get there? And more importantly, how will your brain know what to go after? Your nervous system needs specifics. Your subconscious mind needs targets. The more specific you are, the more your internal GPS can guide you. Think about this: you're in a car, and you punch somewhere nice into the GPS. What happens? Nothing. But if you punch in a precise destination, 123 Freedom Lane or 456 Purpose Drive, now the system goes to work. It maps the path, it recalculates when you hit traffic. It gets you there. That's exactly how your life works. Vague desires lead to vague results. Specific desires ignite specific action. And when you start taking specific action consistently, you become a force to be reckoned with. But clarity isn't just about the what, it's also about the why. You've got to be emotionally clear, not just intellectually clear. You can say, I want to make $1 million. Fine. But why? What will that money do for you? What will it allow you to experience? What will it give your family? What kind of contribution will it let you make? When your why is strong enough, the how starts to reveal itself. That emotional clarity fuels you. It keeps you moving when things get hard. It creates a sense of certainty that pushes through obstacles. Here's another thing: clarity must be revisited. You don't just decide what you want once and forget about it. You decide, you refine, you recommit. Every single day you remind yourself, this is what I want and this is why I must have it. When you condition your mind around your vision, your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters information, starts bringing you the opportunities, the people, the ideas that align with your goals. But it only works if the goal is clear. Sometimes people say, I'm just not sure what I want. And I get it. If you've been living for everyone else's expectations, if you've been reacting instead of creating, you might have lost touch with your deepest desires. But the truth is, deep down, you do know. You've just trained yourself to ignore it. You've gotten good at settling, good at coping, good at being fine. But fine is the enemy of extraordinary. If you want to reclaim that clarity, you've got to ask better questions. What would I go after if I knew I couldn't fail? What do I love so much I'd do it for free? And how can I get so good they pay me anyway? What kind of life would light me up so much I'd leap out of bed in the morning to live it? Clarity also requires courage. Because the moment you admit what you really want, you're also admitting that you're not there yet. And that can be uncomfortable. But here's the good news. Acknowledging the gap is what starts the journey. You can't close the distance between where you are and where you want to be if you're pretending you're already okay. That false comfort zone keeps people stuck for years, sometimes decades. But when you drop the lie and embrace the truth, even if it stings, that's the moment things start to move. And I'll tell you this, the clearer you get, the more momentum you gain. And the more momentum you gain, the more confident you feel. Suddenly, what felt impossible now feels inevitable. That's the power of clarity. It doesn't just give you direction, it gives you certainty. It gives you energy. It gives you leverage. It's the first domino that knocks everything else into motion. Because once you know exactly what you want, down to the detail, down to the emotion, nothing can stop you but you. You don't get in life what you want, you get what you tolerate. Let that sink in for a moment. Most people walk around thinking they're going to eventually get what they desire just because they want it bad enough. But want alone is weak. Wanting something doesn't get you there. Wanting is passive. It's hopeful. It's soft. What actually changes your life is raising your standards. Deciding that you must live a certain way, that you refuse to accept anything less, that it's no longer a negotiation. Everything in your life right now, your body, your finances, your relationships, your career, it's all a reflection of your standards, not your goals, not your dreams. Your standards, what you settle for, what you expect from yourself, what you demand from the people around you, what you've decided is acceptable. That's the truth. People don't rise to the level of their vision, they fall to the level of their standards. If you're constantly tired, burned out, frustrated, broke, or stuck, it's not just bad luck or bad timing. It's because on some level you've accepted that as your norm. You've made peace with it. You've tolerated it. And whatever you tolerate, you empower. Now here's the thing. Raising your standards isn't about arrogance. And it's not about perfection. It's about identity. It's about deciding who you are and then aligning your behavior to that identity, no matter what. You've got to decide, this is who I am now. I'm the kind of person who doesn't skip workouts. I'm the kind of person who follows through. I'm the kind of person who builds wealth, not debt. I'm the kind of person who leads with love, not fear. I'm the kind of person who shows up with energy, who doesn't settle, who doesn't shrink back. And once that identity gets locked in, everything else begins to shift. Because when you truly raise your standards, you change your rituals, you change your habits, you change your environment. You stop tolerating mediocrity in every form. People try to change their lives by setting goals. That's a start. But it's not enough. Goals are exciting, but they're in the future. Standards are what you live by now. They're rooted in the present moment. They show up in your daily choices. They show up in your discipline. They show up in the decisions you make when no one's watching. It's easy to say you want something when it's far off, when it's abstract. But when you raise your standards, you bring the future into the now. You act like the person who already has it. You embody it today. This shift is powerful because it overrides willpower. Willpower is temporary. It fades. It breaks down under pressure. But identity-driven standards, those are permanent. They become part of your wiring. And once you raise the bar on yourself and mean it, the world begins to respond. Because life doesn't give you what you ask for with words. It gives you what you demand with action. When your internal world becomes non-negotiable, the external world starts to bend. Look at anyone who's created lasting change in their life, and you'll see the same pattern. At some point, they got fed up. They hit a threshold. They said, "That's it. No more. I'm done living like this." That moment, that line in the sand, is when everything begins. It doesn't start with motivation. It starts with a decision. And the decision isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's made in the dark when no one's clapping for you. But that internal decision to raise your standards, that moment when you say, "Never again," that's where transformation is born. You've got to get brutally honest with yourself. Where are you living below your potential because your standards are too low? Where are you blaming circumstances when the truth is, you've just lowered the bar to avoid the discomfort of change? Where have you made peace with average when your soul is starving for excellence? These aren't easy questions. They're confronting. But they're necessary, because nothing changes until your standard changes. Some people raise their standards for a week, others raise them for life. The difference is emotional intensity. If you raise your standards casually, you'll fall back into old patterns the moment life tests you. But if you attach deep meaning to it, if you associate massive pain with staying the same and massive pleasure with becoming who you're meant to be, then it sticks. Then it becomes real. You've got to link your new standards to your values, your identity, your vision. It can't just be something you try. It has to be something you live. And here's something else most people miss. Raising your standards often means letting go of people who are committed to staying small. Because your circle sets the tone for your standards. You hang around 5 people who cut corners, complain and settle, and guess what? That becomes your new normal. But if you surround yourself with people who stretch, strive, push boundaries, and grow constantly, you'll have no choice but to elevate. Not because they demand it from you, but because their presence pulls it out of you. So take a good look at who you're spending time with and ask yourself if their energy matches the life you're building. When you raise your standards, the discomfort at first is real. You'll feel resistance. Your brain will scream at you to go back to what's familiar. But that's the test. That's the forge. And if you can hold the line, if you can refuse to lower your standards for the sake of convenience or approval or temporary relief, then you begin to build a life that reflects your true potential. Standards aren't about rules, they're about ownership. They're about taking responsibility for your life at the highest level possible. You can have the perfect strategy, the perfect plan, all the tools, all the resources, and still not follow through. You can read every book, take every course, talk to every expert, and still find yourself stuck, spinning, doubting, hesitating. Why? Because knowledge doesn't drive behavior. Logic doesn't drive action. Emotion does. It always has. It always will. Emotion is the ultimate fuel. It's the trigger, the spark, the engine behind every decision you make. If you want to create lasting change in your life, you've got to stop trying to think your way into it and start learning how to feel your way into it. You've got to learn to leverage the power of emotion. Every breakthrough, every shift, every transformation starts with emotion. It's not some light bulb moment in your head. It's a fire in your gut. It's a feeling of enough is enough. It's an explosion of possibility. It's that deep surge of passion or pain that jolts you out of sleepwalking through your life. Without that intensity, you won't change. Not because you can't, but because you won't want it badly enough. People don't change when they're comfortable. They change when staying the same becomes more painful than the fear of the unknown. They change when they hit a threshold, when the emotional scale tips and they decide to move. You have to learn how to create that threshold on purpose. You can't wait for life to throw you into crisis before you finally take action. You have to use emotion strategically. You have to stack pain and pleasure in a way that forces you to move. Because emotion doesn't just make things feel different. It makes you do different. It shifts your physiology. It shifts your energy. It changes your focus in an instant. That's why people can struggle with something for years, and then in one moment, one emotional moment, they make a permanent decision. It's not that something new happened in the world. It's that something shifted inside them emotionally. Pain and pleasure. These are the two forces that drive everything. Every choice you make is based on what you associate pain to and what you associate pleasure to. If you're procrastinating, it's not because you're lazy. It's because you've unconsciously linked more pain to taking action than to staying stuck. If you're addicted to a habit that's hurting you, it's because, on some level, you've linked more pleasure to the comfort it gives than to the freedom that would come from changing. The key is becoming conscious of those links and then flipping them. You've got to condition yourself to associate massive, unbearable pain to the things that no longer serve you. Not just, I should stop doing, not just, this isn't good for me. No. You've got to emotionally feel the consequences of staying where you are. Feel what it will cost you if you don't change. Feel the regret, the loss, the disconnection. Make it real. Your nervous system doesn't respond to ideas, it responds to feeling. And once you've associated enough pain to your old patterns, the next step is just as important. Link massive pleasure to the new life you're creating. Feel the pride, the energy, the love, the freedom, the confidence. Imagine it so vividly your body starts to believe it's already yours. Most people use emotion passively. They react to whatever shows up. If something good happens, they feel good. If something bad happens, they feel bad. But if you want to master your life, you can't live in reaction. You have to generate emotion. You have to create it on command. That means learning how to shift your state. You do that with your focus, your physiology, and your language. What you focus on, you feel. Change your focus and you change your feeling. How you use your body determines your emotional state. Sit slumped over and breathe shallow, and you'll feel tired. Stand tall, breathe deep, move with energy, and your state changes instantly. And language, what you say to yourself, how you say it, the tone, the intensity, can turn fear into power, confusion into clarity, hesitation into action. Emotion is a pattern. It's not random. If you're always anxious, always overwhelmed, always afraid, that's not just your personality. It's a set of practiced emotional habits. You've been running the same mental movie, saying the same lines in your head, and using your body in the same way every time. But the good news is, if emotion is a pattern, it can be rewired. You can train yourself to feel strong, to feel excited, to feel driven. You can anchor empowering emotions to specific actions, so every time you step into your routine, your mind and body go into a peak state automatically. Athletes do it. Performers do it. Leaders do it. They don't leave their state to chance. They build it. They craft it. Before they step onto the field, onto the stage, into the meeting, they prime themselves emotionally. They bring the intensity, the confidence, the passion they need before anything even happens. And that's the secret most people miss. You don't wait to feel the emotion, you create it. And when you learn to do that, you become unstoppable. Because now, it doesn't matter what's happening around you. You've taken control of what's happening inside you. You've made emotion your servant, not your master. You use it to move forward. You use it to break through. You use it to do the things that logic would talk you out of, but your purpose demands. Emotion doesn't have to be random chaos. It can be precise, focused, intentional power. There's one difference between people who dream and people who do. The people who do act. They move, they execute, they stop thinking about it and do something. They don't have all the answers, they don't always know the perfect next step, but they step anyway. That one shift, taking massive action, is what separates results from regret. You can have the vision, the clarity, the standards, the emotional intensity, but if it all stays trapped in your head or your heart and never hits the real world through action, nothing changes. Ever. Action is the bridge between desire and result. It's the only thing that moves you from the realm of the possible into the realm of the actual. Talk is cheap. Thinking is nice. Journaling is cute. But execution is what changes the game. The reason most people stay stuck isn't because they lack knowledge. It's because they're not taking enough action to create momentum. They're dipping a toe in the water, waiting to feel certain, waiting for the perfect conditions, waiting to feel ready. But ready is a lie. The moment you feel ready is usually the moment it's too late. If you want to build a life that's on fire with progress and results, you've got to become the kind of person who takes action before you feel certain. Action creates certainty. Action builds confidence. Action reveals what works and what doesn't. Here's what happens when you take massive actions. You begin to get feedback, real-world feedback. Not theory, not opinions, not projections. Feedback that shows you exactly what's working and what needs to change. And that feedback is priceless. It gives you the power to adapt, to refine, to iterate. That's how momentum builds. You try something, you see what happens, you adjust, you go again. Speed of implementation becomes your superpower. You stop overthinking, stop second-guessing, and start learning by doing. And the faster you move, the more you learn. The more you learn, the better you get. The better you get, the more progress you make. Suddenly, you're in motion. You're not stuck anymore. You're building something real. Now, when we say massive action, we're not talking about just doing more for the sake of doing more. This isn't about being busy. It's about being relentlessly effective. It's about throwing everything you've got at the goal until something breaks loose. It's about being unreasonable in your pursuit. Not in a reckless way, but in a committed way. You stop entertaining distractions. You stop indulging in excuses. You stop negotiating with your limitations. You decide this is happening no matter what. And then you move. You move fast, you move consistently, you move with force. Most people take tentative action. They move a little, then wait, they try, then pull back. They do something once, and when it doesn't work, they label it as failure. But failure is never the end unless you stop acting. Failure is just feedback wrapped in pain. It's your invitation to go again smarter. You've got to learn how to fail forward. To take massive action not just once, but over and over and over again, until the outcome bends in your favor. Because it will. If you don't stop, you can't lose. Another key to massive action is emotional state. You can't take bold, decisive action if your body is in a sluggish, low-energy state. That's why priming your body and your mind matters. You need to move like someone who's about to change their life. You need to breathe like someone who's ready to lead. You need to speak to yourself in a voice that commands power, not pity. Because when you elevate your state, you elevate your action. And when you elevate your action, the world responds. The truth is, most people are waiting for motivation to strike before they take action. But motivation is a byproduct of movement. It comes after you start, not before. Think of a train at a dead stop. It takes a ton of energy to get it moving, but once it's rolling, momentum kicks in. That's you. Your life, your goals, your destiny. They're all waiting on you to start pushing. And not with a tap, but with a shove. With intensity, with obsession, with total commitment. You can't tiptoe your way into greatness. You've got to go all in. Some people fear taking massive action because they're afraid of wasting effort. But the only wasted effort is the one you never make. Everything you do teaches you something. Everything you try either works or builds you into someone who can handle what's coming next. You're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience. And that experience compounds. It sharpens your instincts. It thickens your skin. It expands your capacity. You become someone who's not afraid to move fast and break patterns. And that's a superpower in a world where everyone is stuck trying to figure it out. Taking massive action also rewires your identity. When you become a person of action, you stop identifying with hesitation. You stop identifying with excuses. You stop identifying with stuckness. You start identifying as someone who does what they say they're going to do. Someone who moves. Someone who makes things happen. That identity will carry you through the valleys. It will lift you when your motivation drops. It becomes your default mode. And once it's locked in, you stop needing willpower. Action becomes automatic. Execution becomes who you are, not something you try to do. When you act massively, you collapse time. Things that used to take years start happening in months. Doors open. People notice. Opportunities appear. Not because you waited for them, but because you were already moving when they showed up. Most of the best things in life don't come because you sat and waited. They come because you were already in motion, and life met you on the path. Every single person is living a life that matches the story they've been telling themselves. Not the one they say out loud at parties, not the one they write in a journal once a year, but the internal script that plays on a loop in their mind. That script is powerful. It's not just commentary, it's command. It directs your thoughts, your choices, your energy, your beliefs, your standards, your behavior. If you want to change your life in a meaningful, lasting way, the first place you need to look isn't your circumstances, it's your story. The human mind craves coherence. We're wired for narrative. We don't just live events, we interpret them. We give them meaning. We explain them to ourselves. We build stories around our pain, our past, our potential. And over time, those stories become our identity. They become who we think we are. But just because a story feels true doesn't mean it's the truth. Just because it's been on repeat doesn't mean it's accurate. Most people don't question their stories. They live inside them like walls. They say things like, "I've always been this way," or "That's just who I am," or "I can't because," and they think they're describing reality. What they're really doing is reciting a limiting script. And that script is a prison. Your story determines your ceiling. If your story says you're not good enough, you'll sabotage success every time it gets close. If your story says you're not someone who finishes things, you'll quit the moment it gets uncomfortable. If your story says you've never been good with money, you'll find a way to stay broke no matter how much you earn. These aren't just quirks or coincidences. They're the effects of internal narratives being played out in real time. And if you don't consciously rewrite that story, it keeps running your life on autopilot. Changing your story starts with awareness. You've got to catch the script in motion. Notice the language you use when you talk about yourself. Notice what you say when things go wrong. Do you speak like a creator or a victim? Do you describe problems as permanent or temporary? Do you use language that disempowers you or lights a fire inside you? Language matters because it's the code your nervous system runs on. Change your language, and you begin to interrupt the old patterns. Once you recognize the story, the next step is to challenge it. Ask yourself, who gave me this story? Did I choose it, or did I inherit it from someone else's fear, someone else's limitations, someone else's beliefs? Maybe it came from your parents, your culture, your childhood, a trauma, a failure, a betrayal. But just because it started there doesn't mean it has to end there. You can't rewrite your past, but you can rewrite the meaning. You can reframe what it means about you. You can decide from this moment forward that your past isn't your prison, it's your preparation. The most powerful stories are the ones that give you access to choice. A disempowering story says, "This happened to me, so I can't." An empowering story says, "This happened for me, so now I must." Same event, different story, radically different destiny. You get to decide if your pain becomes your excuse or your fuel. You get to decide if your failures become your evidence or your education. You get to decide if your identity is fixed or flexible. And that choice changes everything. Here's the truth: most people never realize your story is adaptable. It's editable. It's yours. You're not locked into it. You can update it like software. You can rewrite it like a script. And when you do, your life begins to mirror the new narrative. You stop repeating the old cycles. You stop reinforcing the same identity. Because your story isn't just who you were, it's who you're becoming. When you upgrade your story, you upgrade your destiny. Some people wait for external proof to change their story. They think, once I succeed, then I'll believe I'm successful. Once someone loves me, then I'll believe I'm lovable. But it doesn't work that way. The shift has to happen first on the inside. You've got to change the story before the evidence shows up. Because the new story is what unlocks the new behavior. And the new behavior is what creates the new result. You act in alignment with the story you believe. So if you want to act differently, you've got to believe differently. Rewriting your story doesn't mean pretending. It doesn't mean lying to yourself. It means finding a more empowering interpretation that serves your highest potential. It means saying, yes, I've struggled, but that doesn't mean I'm weak. It means I've developed strength. It means saying, yes, I've made mistakes, but that doesn't mean I'm broken. It means I've learned. It means refusing to let your history define your future. The story you tell must be bigger than your excuses, deeper than your fears, stronger than your doubts. And here's where most people get stuck. They try to change their story, but they keep surrounding themselves with people who reinforce the old one. You cannot live a powerful new story while staying plugged into voices that keep reading you the old script. You need to be around people who speak to your potential, not your pain. People who remind you of what you're building, not what you're escaping. People who challenge your limitations and pull greatness out of you even when you can't see it yet. Reinforce your new story with repetition. Speak it, write it, live it. Act like it's already true, and you'll begin to feel it as true. Your nervous system doesn't care whether something is real or vividly imagined. It reacts the same. Use that to your advantage. Visualize yourself succeeding. See yourself showing up powerfully. Create a future memory and step into it emotionally until it becomes familiar. Until it becomes your baseline. Until it becomes who you are. You want to know what's shaping your standards, your expectations, your decisions, your future. Look at your environment. Look at the people you're around every day, because success isn't just about your habits, it's about your habitat. Your life is a direct reflection of the standards of the people you surround yourself with. And if you're not consciously choosing that proximity, it's choosing you. If you're not intentional about who you're around, then you're being influenced by default. And the default is rarely excellence. Energy is contagious. Attitudes are contagious. Beliefs, language, certainty, drive, vision. It all gets transferred through proximity. Sit in a room with people who complain, make excuses, and settle for less, and you'll find yourself slowly lowering your standards without even realizing it. But sit in a room with people who play all out, who demand more from themselves, who make no room for victimhood, and suddenly, your perspective shifts. Your idea of what's possible expands. You start thinking bigger, acting bolder, living louder. That's the power of proximity. It doesn't just influence you, it imprints on you. We become who we spend the most time with. It's not just philosophy, it's neuroscience. The brain has something called mirror neurons. These neurons are designed to simulate the actions and emotions of the people we observe. In other words, you're hardwired to absorb the behaviors, standards, and even emotional states of those around you. If you're around lethargy, you feel slower. If you're around excellence, you rise. You don't have to think about it. It just happens. You align to the dominant energy in the room. So the question becomes, what energy are you aligning to every day? If you're serious about changing your life, you have to get around people who stretch you, people who challenge you, people who don't accept your excuses, who don't let you play small, who don't let you live in a story that no longer serves you. You need people who reflect your future, not your past. People whose very presence demands that you level up. And that means being bold enough to upgrade your environment. That means auditing your circle. Because not everyone gets to go where you're going. Some people in your life are comfort zones with names. They're familiar, predictable, safe, and they're the very reason you haven't changed. They mean well, but they reinforce the version of you that you're trying to grow out of. And if you're always around people who expect the old you, you'll keep acting like the old you. You'll shrink to fit their comfort, rather than expand to meet your calling. You can love people and still outgrow them. You can honor your past and still walk toward your future. Proximity doesn't mean you have to cut people out, but it does mean you need to prioritize who you're letting influence your state, your standards, your story. On the other side of that decision is a new tribe, a new environment, a new circle of influence that pulls the best out of you instead of tolerating the average. The moment you walk into a space where excellence is the baseline, where hunger is normal, where dreaming big is just the starting point, you feel it. You don't need to be convinced to step up. You're compelled to. That's the kind of room you want to be in. That's the energy that elevates you without force. Because when you're surrounded by people who are ahead of you, who have done what you want to do, who live what you want to live, it changes what you believe is possible. Their results become proof. Their mindset becomes a model. Their presence becomes permission. Proximity also accelerates learning. You can read books, watch videos, listen to podcasts, and those are powerful. But there's a different transmission that happens when you're around people in real time. When you see how they move, how they think, how they solve problems, how they respond to pressure. You pick up nuances that can't be taught. They can only be caught. And you can collapse decades into days when you surround yourself with the right people. But proximity is more than just being around winners. It's about immersing yourself. It's about finding ways to contribute, to connect, to serve, to learn. It's about getting yourself into environments that force growth. Where your current level is not impressive, where you're the least experienced person in the room. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's how you stretch. That's how you grow. When you're constantly the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You're not being challenged. You're being validated. And validation doesn't lead to growth. Discomfort does. The truth is, you're always being mentored, whether you know it or not. The people closest to you are mentoring you every single day. Through their mindset, their behavior, their priorities, their energy. So you have to ask yourself, what are they teaching you? Are they teaching you to dream bigger or settle smaller? Are they teaching you to take responsibility or point fingers? Are they pushing you toward discipline or feeding your distractions? You don't rise to the level of your intentions. You rise to the level of your environment. You want to build a strong body? Get around people who train with intensity. You want to grow your business? Be around people who think in scale, not scarcity. You want to master your emotional state? Surround yourself with people who don't tolerate drama, who live in solutions, who are grounded in purpose. Your environment will either pull you forward or drag you back. And if you don't design it with intention, you'll default into mediocrity. Proximity is power because it's permission. Permission to dream bigger, to act faster, to think sharper, to feel more alive, to expect more from yourself, to stop apologizing for wanting more. When you're around people who are living examples of what's possible, their courage transfers to you. Their breakthroughs unlock your breakthroughs. Their certainty silences your doubt. Their success becomes the new standard you hold yourself to. And that's not its environment, it's influence, it's alignment. Everything in your life right now, your body, your finances, your relationships, your career, your happiness, none of it is a reflection of your potential. It's a reflection of your standards. Not the standards you wish you had, not the ones you talk about when you're motivated, but the ones you live by when it's hard, the ones that kick in when nobody's watching, the ones you tolerate. Because ultimately we don't get what we want, we get what we must, what we demand of ourselves, what we refuse to settle for. Your standards are like an internal thermostat. If your standard is to just get by, that's exactly what you'll create, just enough to survive, but never enough to thrive. If your standard is, I work hard when I feel like it, then you've just programmed inconsistency into your results. If your standard is, I show up when I'm in the mood, then your entire life will be a roller coaster of mood swings and mediocrity. But if your standard is, I show up no matter what, if your standard is, I don't leave until it's done, if your standard is, I don't break promises to myself, then that becomes your identity. And that identity reshapes your entire destiny. Standards are not goals. A goal is something you hope to reach. A standard is something you refuse to fall below. One is negotiable, the other is not. Most people fail not because their goals are too high, but because their standards are too low. They've conditioned themselves to tolerate less than they deserve, to accept tired excuses, to live beneath what they're capable of. And the scary part, over time that becomes normal. It becomes familiar, it becomes safe. And once something becomes familiar, you stop questioning it. You stop challenging it. You just live it, day after day, year after year, like a script you forgot you were even reading. If you want a new outcome, you need a new standard. You've got to raise what you expect from yourself, because nobody rises to a level they haven't decided to live at. It starts with a line in the sand, a declaration, a decision. This is who I am now, not someday. Now. And when you draw that line, the old version of you doesn't get to cross it, the lazy version, the undisciplined version, the reactive version, the people-pleasing version, the distracted, disempowered, diluted version of you. That version doesn't get to come into the future you're building. But here's the catch. Raising your standards doesn't automatically change your life. It changes you. And that's what changes your life. Because when you raise your standards, you force your nervous system, your mindset, your habits to recalibrate. You begin acting like someone with a new identity. Someone who doesn't quit when it's inconvenient. Someone who doesn't break when things get messy. Someone who doesn't make excuses, even when they're valid. That kind of standard doesn't just change your results, it changes your character. And character is what carries you when motivation dies. Think about someone who transformed their body, built a world-class business, created extraordinary relationships. Those results didn't come from wishing harder. They came from refusing to lower their standards when it got uncomfortable. They held the line. They didn't just act in alignment with who they were. They acted in alignment with who they decided to become. That's the key. Your new standards must be based on your future self, not your current circumstances. Because if you wait for your circumstances to change before you raise your standards, you'll be waiting forever. Raising your standards means changing your rituals. Because standards don't live in your mouth, they live in your daily behavior. You can say you want to be wealthy, but if your standard is to spend more than you earn, you'll stay broke. You can say you want a passionate relationship, but if your standard is to check out emotionally, you'll never have intimacy. You can say you want to lead, but if your standard is to avoid responsibility, no one will follow you. There's no hiding from your habits. They expose what you really believe you deserve. And yes, this process hurts at first. Raising your standards feels like a fight, because you're battling the old version of yourself. The one who got comfortable in chaos, the one who found identity in struggle, the one who's addicted to the story of, I'm doing my best, while never actually pushing to their best. But if you want to break out, you have to break that. You have to kill the old standard. You have to bury the old expectations and build new ones with urgency and intention. Here's what happens when you raise your standards and actually hold them. The world starts to respond differently. Opportunities shift. People treat you differently. Not because they've changed, but because you have. You're operating from a different frequency now. One that demands excellence. One that walks in power. One that won't accept being average, not for a second. You show up differently and the world reflects that right back at you. And don't wait for validation. Don't wait for applause. Don't wait for the world to cheer you on. This isn't about impressing anyone. This is about aligning with your own greatness. This is about finally meeting the version of you that's been buried under years of self-doubt, distraction, compromise. Because that version, the one who owns the room, commands respect, leads with fire, moves with certainty, builds with passion. That version has been waiting on one thing: for you to raise the bar and never lower it again. You were not born to settle. You were not built to live in limitation. You were designed to grow, to stretch, to expand, to create, to lead. Every single one of these principles: clarity of outcome, certainty of belief, intelligent strategy, massive action, rewriting your story, controlling your proximity, raising your standards. They're not motivational fluff. They're the architecture of transformation. They are the blueprint for creating an extraordinary life, not in theory, but in real, tangible results. You don't need more information. You need activation. You need to make a decision so powerful that it cuts off every other possibility. You need to draw a line and say, from this moment forward, I will no longer tolerate anything less than who I was born to be. Because the only thing between you and the life you crave isn't circumstance. It's the standard you hold yourself to. It's the identity you claim. It's the story you live in, the actions you take, and the people you allow to influence your destiny. You want anything? Then decide. Step into it. Own it. No more waiting for the perfect moment. No more playing small because of fear. No more apologizing for wanting more. Raise your voice. Raise your vision. Raise your energy. Raise your standard. And watch how fast your life starts to mirror the fire that's already inside you. This isn't about becoming someone else. This is about remembering who you really are. The power, the certainty, the hunger, the unshakable belief. It's all in you. It always has been. Now is the time to claim it. Now is the time to live it. Because the life you want is not out there in the distance. It's on the other side of the decision you make right now.